What's up, guys? So for this tutorial, we're just going to do a high-level run-through of some basic Ruby concepts to get you prepared for my future tutorials. So we're going to dive on in here, open IRB. So first, variables. Variables are basically, you're just giving an object or something in Ruby a name. To make a variable, you just start with a name, anything you want it to be, anything, and then you set it equal to something. So in this case, we'll just set it equal to a string testing. So now this anything variable is set to testing. Anytime I reference it, it'll return testing. So if you type in order to reference it, you just type in the name, hit enter, and you'll see a return testing right here. You can overwrite variables, so I can set anything equal to testing2. Whoops, if I put it in a string, testing2, and it'll return testing2. You can declare strings with single quotes and double quotes, so testing. See, that works. Generally speaking, you want to use double quotes for a thing called interpolation. To illustrate that, we'll just go ahead and make a new variable. We'll make the variable x and set it equal to 1. So now let's say within a string, I want to output this variable value. So in order to do that, if I do double quotes here and I say output x, wanting it to output 1, it won't work here. It'll just put output x. So we hit enter, output x. So in order to get it to actually output this value of x within the string, we have to use what's called interpolation. So if we do output, and then the syntax for interpolation is you do a pound and curly braces, and then you put the variable inside of those curly braces. So put the variable x in here, and it should say output 1 when we hit enter. And there it is. So yeah, that's interpolation. There's to get a string to get its class, or to get anything's class essentially in Ruby, you can just call this .class method on it, and it'll didn't mean to do that. It'll return its parent class. You can also, another handy trick with Ruby is any object or any string that you're working with, basically you can do this .methods and then .sort, and it'll return every method that's available to that object. So you can see there's all kinds of stuff here. And I would highly recommend you play with some of these methods. This is just going to be high-level exposure to some of these things. So yeah, I'm going to move on, but just so you're aware and have this option to view and go through some of these, I would recommend you do so. So next, let's look at integers. So integers, if we do .class on it, it'll return integer. You can do things like subtraction, addition, multiplication, division. You can do comparisons. So you can say is equal to 2, true. You can do like less than, greater than, and then greater than or equal to. Oops. You can do all those things. You can also do float, or there's another thing called floats, and floats are basically decimals. So make sure you have the leading 0, or else Ruby will yell at you. But that's a float, and you can do .class on it. Return float. And like above, you can do the .methods on floats and integers. You can do .methods, but I prefer sort because it's in alphabetical order. So if you're looking for something specific, it makes it easier. Like integers with floats, you can also do things like subtraction, addition, multiplication. All those are available to you. Comparisons, you can also kind of blend the two, so you can do 0.2 times 1, and it's going to return a float. So yeah, that's integers, floats, and strings. That's how you get a parent's class. Everything we make in Ruby is an object. That's another thing. So to get an object ID, which is just a unique identifier for an object, you can call object ID on anything, and it'll return it. So test, this is a string, and you'll see you'll get the object ID from that as well. But yeah, I think that's a good high level. There's also a thing called symbols. I don't want to get too far into this because it's a little more confusing, but essentially they have the same object ID. They're unique and they don't change basically throughout your Ruby execution. And how you identify symbols is they're usually prefixed with a colon. So if you do that and then do class, you'll see it is a symbol. I think that's a good starting point. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to cover real quick. Oh, also you can do things, there's conversions. So you can take an integer and you can convert it to a string by doing like .toString. You can also take a string. I think you can convert strings to integers .toI. Yeah, not that that really helps anything. But anyway, there's different conversions, or you can do string.toSym to get a symbol, or you can do integers to, is it F or float? I can't remember. It's 2F. So that's another thing you can do. But yeah, so play around with these basic classes. You're going to be using them if you get into Ruby at all. And it's good to have this core understanding. But that's it for this one. If you found it helpful, please like and subscribe. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the comments. Thanks, guys.